Well, good morning, everybody. A few thoughts, quick thoughts on the announcement that if somebody comes forward with the information that will secure the conviction of the real killer of Teresa, we know perfectly well it's not Steve and Brendan. And to all you guilters out there, we've never gone anywhere. The more we've dug, the more we've realised how corrupt the legal system over there in Wisconsin is. Just move that across a bit so that you can see my new edition, my new book, Innocence Betrayed, which I'm currently reading at the moment, and a really, really good book it is too. Really interesting stuff. It's going to take me a while to get through though, because there's a lot of information in there. It's a lot of years work by Dr. Sandra Lean, whose father I discovered on Friday was actually a work colleague of mine when I first moved up to Scotland. So that was it's quite a small world, isn't it? Anyway, thoughts on the $100,000. First thoughts. That's a lifetime supply of Dr. Pepper. Well, it would keep him going with, I believe that the calculation was 20 cans per day for the next 35 years or something like that. It was an astronomical amount of Dr. Pepper. But anyway, a lifetime supply, but of course there are other options, more sensible options. I haven't even considered how much beer you could buy with the 100,000. Anyway, joking aside, let's just remember that with this announcement, Kathleen Zellner was very quick to point out that this, is in addition to, over and above, the appeal to the Court of Appeals, and of course that is no longer in Judge Sukovich's hands, and thank goodness for that, because it's interesting, isn't it, how certain people have criticised Zellner for taking her time. If Zellner had been in front of and presenting to a proper judge, then this would have been sorted out a lot sooner. He's often right on a lot of things. Chad Keller pointed out, I think it was back in 2016, 2017, that Kathleen Zellner will be messed about by Wisconsin, backwards and forwards, District Court, Court of Appeals. They will have her going backwards and forwards with this. Well, in particular, obviously, Judge Flowers, because of her protectionism nature, because of the fact that she wants to try and protect the state. In fact, it's somewhat incredible that despite the CD being handed back 12 years later, and then discovering that bones were handed back to the holdbacks that could have been animal bones, you realise what a mess the state have got themselves into, and how much they are clutching on to straws to try and prevent the case going any further. In fact, I'm sure you've heard me mention this before. In one of my conversations with the former sheriff of Manitowoc County, he stopped me mid-sentence and said, "Paul, let me assure you, Stephen Avery will spend the rest of his life in prison." And I remember at the time thinking, well, that's either one of two things. Either one, you've said it that many times, you're actually convincing yourself of that, or you've been given certain assurances that there are measures in place to protect the conviction. And certainly one of them is quite clearly Judge Angie, who has really shamed herself really by what she's done. The way that she's behaved is not as a judge should behave. She should not be challenged, as Kathleen Zellner pointed out, she should not be challenging the opinions of her experts. Particularly as when you look at the original case, when it comes to certain experts, they weren't around. No expert looked at the bullet in as much detail under as powerful a microscope as to be able to detect and see clearly that there's wood on the bullet. You know, it's and the DNA tests to prove, well, you can't possibly get that amount of DNA just by handling either, you know, opening a bonnet or holding a key. But anyway, getting back to the aspect of the financial gain that somebody could very well benefit from. There's two sides to that. First of all, we need somebody with information to come forward, and it might be that somebody has up until now protected an individual or certain individuals, and maybe one hurdle that person would need to get over would be the fact that people might be very critical and say, we told you so all along, you're just doing it now that you've got the opportunity of taking some money out of it. But I think true supporters of Stephen Brendan and of justice for Teresa will realise that if that person hasn't until now come forward, this does make a big difference to them, both in a financial point of view, and also it makes you realise what kind of pressures that person was under previously, if it takes that amount of money to secure their faith in the legal system to get it right this time. And of course, it then puts huge pressure on the real killer or killers, because they are now in constant fear that somebody is contacting the hotline and saying, well, I have this information. Yep, I'm sorry, I should have shared it earlier. I should have told you earlier. It's something that's grown heavier and heavier on my mind. Now I'm coming forward and telling you. And that pressure on the real killer will undoubtedly cause that person or persons to make mistakes. Just the sheer pressure of the fear that they are now getting ever closer to being exposed as the killer. But as usual, leave your comments, leave your opinions. Had a bit of a falling out with one of the commenters. You know, if you're going to start get personal, listen, I'll quite happily delete you. I will quite happily. Your last comment, I didn't even begin to read it. I saw one or two words there and I just thought, no, I've warned you. That's it, end of. Okay, so a stupid guilter, can't spell, doesn't know anything about grammar, and kept barking on about, you haven't answered my question as to, you haven't done an update since 2018 on what's happening. What have I been doing 2 or 3 videos a week for? Anyway, we'll put that to one side. As I say, as usual, your opinions always greatly appreciated. And just to let you know, as I say, I'm getting through this book, some very interesting stuff. I'm hoping at some point to be able to disseminate some of the information, some of the great paragraphs that, in fact, I'm going to save that for another time. I've done a photograph of one of the other paragraphs, which is absolutely brilliant. Really does put into context the way that certain guilters think about truthers. But anyway, we'll save that for later time. Catch you later. Bye for now.